This video from inside the Cargill meat processing plant in High River, Alberta. We've talked about it a lot of late. It is the site of the single largest outbreak of COVID-19 in North America. Images that have come to light as a result of good investigative journalism put together and submitted by workers. Some of these taken before the plant was temporarily closed because of the outbreak, but it reopened on Monday, and Cargill says new safety measures are in place and stands by those safety measures. But the workers and the union still have major concerns. We've been talking about this because we have this incredible interactive feature up on our website now, CBCNews.ca, which documents what happened as the virus spread to many people. Nearly half of the facility staff, nearly 1,000 workers, more than 1,500 cases now linked to the particular plant. There have been deaths. We've been talking about just the most recent, the father of one of the workers. So there are still plenty of questions and still a great deal of interest in this humongous meat processing facility. And to talk about it today, we have the two journalists who put that investigative interactive feature together, both with me this morning, Sarah Rieger and Joel Dryden, who've been working on this for weeks, and I'm very happy that they're able to give us some time from Calgary to talk about it. So good morning, both of you, and thanks for being on the program today.
Thanks for having us, Heather.
Sarah, let me begin with you because, seriously, what a story it is. And the basic question is, how on earth did this facility become the single largest outbreak for COVID-19 in North America? Can you give me sort of an overall picture to begin? Where were the failures?
It's really hard to say, but from what we heard from workers, it sounds like one of the biggest things was just the extremely close quarters that they were working in. We're talking about people that are elbow to elbow on these processing lines, changing rooms that are just crammed to the brim. And it just spread so quickly within the facility, from dozens of cases to hundreds within just a matter of weeks.
Okay, so just pause right there, Sarah, and we're looking at the video as you describe that too, so that just the spread through these crowded, cramped facilities very quickly. When you say the people to whom we spoke, Joel, tell us just a little bit of an idea. You spoke over many weeks to a number of employees. Tell us who you spoke to and the kinds of stories they were sharing with you.
Sure. So we spoke to 14 current employees of the facility. And the important thing to remember with a facility like this is that workers are primarily immigrants or temporary foreign workers, and many of them speak limited or no English. And for many of them, these jobs are essential for their stay in Canada. So, what we heard, like Sarah said, is, up until the closure of the facility, there simply just really wasn't room for physical distancing. And Cargill did put in measures in place to help mitigate spread, but according to workers at that point, it was just too late.
So they did acknowledge that they had to do something to increase the safety. Is that right, Joel? And they did put in measures, as you say. Can you tell me specifically what they did? Sure.
So Cargill put in, especially in the fabrication line where you're seeing a lot of this, where you would think you're seeing a lot of this spread because of those quarters, they've now put in plastic barriers to separate these workers. There are still concerns among workers and among the union that may not be sufficient. The union filed a stop work order last week to try to prevent the facility from reopening on Monday. The facility did reopen. You're seeing another one there that's submitted from another employee of the facility that's in the locker room. That is a shield to try to prevent spread in that space.
So these are the things that they've done now, like later, to allow for the reopening. Let's go back, Sarah, just for a moment or two, though, to when this was beginning. And as you said, the close confines and then the cases as they were mounting into the hundreds. What did you learn from the employees in terms of what was happening, case by case by case, as the numbers were increasing, and the kinds of information they were getting from Cargill about their safety?
I think one of the things we've learned is that they were not given a lot of information initially. That's something we've heard from their union as well. So the union alleges that when the first case at Cargill was documented on April 6th, they were not told of it, and employees were only told a few days later. But at that point, there were already rumors spreading in the community. That was when we started to really hear that dozens of people were sick.
And again, just to look at these pictures with the two of you and to look at them online, I mean, many people probably don't have a sense of what it looks like in one of these massive processing plants, and to learn terms as we do in reading your piece, kill floor, knocking area, fabrication line, and these, Joel, these were the conditions in which these hundreds of employees were working at the time.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I think the important thing to remember too is that, you know, working in a meat packing facility is hard work on a normal day, let alone during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only did we hear that a lot of employees suffered physical injuries, but something that I don't think that comes to mind initially is that it's mentally challenging work as well, especially on the kill floor, because, you know, day after day you're killing cattle day after day. And that led to, you know, a lot of them feeling, you know, depressed. And, you know, according to some workers, some employees just weren't able to put up with it. They just couldn't last in a role like that.
And then introduced to that, of course, the added concern about COVID-19. So, Sarah, for these employees now, hundreds of employees, nearly half of the workforce testing positive, how are they? Where are they? Are they being cared for?
Well, their stress levels are still really, really high from everything we've heard. Not all of them have returned to work, even though the plant has reopened. But from what we're hearing, even though the plant has said it has implemented, you know, more safety measures than before the temporary closure, they're understandably still very stressed out about this situation. We've also heard that some of them are experiencing some financial issues from the temporary closure. So there are agencies on the ground supporting them, delivering food hampers, that sort of thing.
And Joel, then to come back to you, because you were mentioning some of the changes in the workplace that Cargill has instituted, and it did reopen on Monday, and yet there are calls for a public inquiry. There are calls for a criminal investigation. The president of Cargill told CBC News earlier this week, to use his words, yes, it did get out of control, the acknowledgement, but now he's confident in the safety measures. So is it safe now for these workers?
Well, that's the big question. I mean, and Cargill is not the only meat facility seeing this kind of an outbreak. I mean, you're seeing it across North America at similar facilities. This is the largest one. But we're going to see now in the coming, you know, weeks to come whether or not the safety measures in place will mitigate spread. Cargill says that they're confident it will. Alberta Health Services has conducted inspections. The union remains unconvinced. So we will see in the coming weeks, you know, if we continue to see spread in that facility.
And as you'll continue to investigate, I know. Sarah, last word to you. What is your big takeaway from hearing these stories and investigating this particular situation?
One of the academics we spoke to, Jessica Liebler, a professor in Boston, said, I'm going to use her words because I think they were just so perfect. This situation just really highlights the precarious position so many of the workers are in who deliver our food, who produce our food. So hopefully the big lesson out of this is maybe we can all pay a little bit more attention to where our food comes from.
Tremendous amount of work, I know, went into that, and it is a tremendous read and an exploration there online. So thank you for the time this morning, and thanks for all the work into that online piece. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Heather.
Sarah Rieger and Joel Dryden, both in Calgary this morning. Again, to direct your attention to the website, you'll see the video, you'll see their photos. Again, to remind you, some of them taken before the coronavirus pandemic, but provided by workers who are there. But it's up online for you now at CBCNews.ca, Inside the Slaughterhouse, Sarah and Joel's interactive feature.